Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast. We're headed into our final segment of the day, and I wanted to touch on some NFL stories surrounding T. Higgins and Brandon Aiyuk and where things currently stand with them. We have some recent updates on the T. Higgins situation where it was reported that he was looking for a contract similar to what Michael Pittman got during the offseason. He was franchise tagged and was given an extension for about $20 million a year. And that's what Higgins was hoping for, but supposedly the number that the Bengals threw out there was nowhere close to that, and the two just do not see eye to eye. He requested a trade a handful of weeks ago. He is sort of doubled down on it, and I think that the conversation is really interesting with him. He's actually not the only one that has requested a trade out of Cincinnati. Trey Hendrickson as well, defensive end, reportedly wants out as well. So the Bengals are sort of just holding this thing together right now. And I do feel like that is probably the way that this plays out. Now, it would hurt them if either of these players were to try and go on some sort of a holdout. I feel like it would actually be more impactful if Trey Hendrickson did. But in terms of T. Higgins and his future with Cincinnati and in the NFL, I don't know if he can I feel like in general, holdouts during the prime years of your career can be very harmful. You know, I'm definitely pro player over, pro franchises, but I feel like it is a difficult situation to try and necessarily hold out, especially if you are in the position of Higgins, who just had a down year last season, career lows in just about every statistical category, partially in due to the fact that he himself was dealing with injuries and his quarterback Joe Burrow was as well, so there was a lot of inconsistency there. But just in terms of sort of where things stand with Higgins, I thought if he weren't going to, and this does sort of stand for Brandon Aiyuk as well, if he wasn't going to get traded during the NFL draft, I have a hard time thinking that he's going to be traded in general. Player for player NFL trades sort of rarely, work out, or rarely happen, period. Not just, work out necessarily. But I think that for the Bengals, they feel like they are going to be competitive to win the AFC and win the Super Bowl this year. And they are going to do everything they can to sort of push their chips into this year before Joe Burrow's contract ends up skyrocketing. I think that this is possibly his fifth-year option that he's coming up on right now. I'll have to sort of double-check what the exact details of his contract are looking like. But obviously the extension is coming in very soon, if not it's already kicking in this season. And so it's going to start to take off. I believe this is his fifth-year option, and then it's going to jump. His cap hit is going to jump over $46 million for the next handful of years. So the Bengals are trying to capitalize on the opportunity they have this year, and unless they can find a move for T. Higgins that is going to get them value in return that can help them compete this season, I just don't see a way that they ultimately make this move. And that sort of goes for Brandon Aiyuk as well, who Aiyuk has not publicly requested a trade, but has done all of the sort of, online stirring the pot moves of commenting on. It was John Lynch, I think, made a comment about wanting to have Brandon Aiyuk for the long-term future, and Aiyuk posted a series of emojis that was something like money talks, and all that. The 49ers situation is very interesting. I'm not sure if I've fully touched on it since the draft, but they went and they selected Ricky Pearsall out of Florida in the first round. This was a little bit of a surprising move, but considering the fact that in terms of guarantees, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk could both be gone by the start of the 2025 season, I do think that this makes sense for them. I think that Pearsall is an incredible player, and I think that he's going to have a lot of success in the NFL. I really wanted the Patriots to go and draft him. So I feel like into a Shanahan offense, Pearsall is definitely going to be a threat. when you look at the Cincinnati situation in terms of how they handled the draft and what impact it could have. They drafted a couple weapons, specifically Jermaine Burton in the third round could be interesting. I believe he was the former Bulldog turned Crimson Tide, and he was definitely a deep threat that was very valuable last season for the play of Alabama, where Jalen Milroe, who I'm definitely not out on as a prospect, but he seems limited, to say the least, in terms of how he performed last season. And it seemed like at a certain point when they started hitting their stride, it was, okay, we have Burton, we're going to send him deep because he is more athletic than the majority of opposing cornerbacks, and he's either going to make a play or they are and Milroe, keep in mind, obviously, accuracy and over the middle, all of those can still be concerns for them at times. Arm strength is not a concern for Milroe, so it was let it rip and let Burton make a play. If he doesn't catch it, he might draw a flag, all of those types of ideologies, and he was an effective player, and I feel like he's going to be a nice little... I don't think that he's necessarily wide receiver 1, but I feel like he can turn into sort of a similar version of what T. Higgins was playing off of Jamar Chase, because Chase isn't eligible for his contract extension until next offseason, but I would imagine that is going to be the priority for them, and they're probably going to, double down on him as their wide receiver 1 for the future, which makes total sense to me. But Burton can sort of slide into that role in terms of, being that complementary piece. And I understand it doesn't feel great to let a player with the talent of T. Higgins just walk, but at the same time, I just don't feel like the Bengals can afford paying Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase all the money that they're going to be guaranteed, and then throwing in a third receiver in T. Higgins, who I do like, and I think that he can be a wide receiver 1, but I don't think he's ever going to be one of those upper echelon wide receiver 1s, and for them, I feel like they're just better off sort of playing out this season, and if he walks, so be it. But he gives them a much better chance to compete in the Super Bowl this upcoming season. And Aiyuk, I feel like the outlook with them long term is a little bit different, because Deebo Samuel is, I would say, the better wide receiver. When Deebo is fully healthy, in terms of the versatility that he can provide, it's really hard to pick a skill position player who can do more than Deebo Samuel, but he's on the older side. Injuries are a massive concern with him, and if they have an out in the contract after next season, they're going to have to be dishing out a likely lucrative contract to Brock Purdy, who, after playing all these years on his rookie contract, I don't think that he is going to try and go on the cheaper side, the team-friendly deal. I think he's going to try and get his, which he absolutely deserves. Now, that's a whole other conversation if you feel like they should be paying Purdy or they shouldn't. But ultimately, when it comes to the conversation around which wide receiver to stick with, I kind of feel like I would lean with Brandon Aiyuk. I just think that the level of production he's been able to put up while being the wide receiver 2, and he's probably more of the third option, because I think that Christian McCaffrey is probably more considered the first or second option than Aiyuk is. But to have the season that he did last year, 1,300 yards, 75 receptions on option 2, at least wide receiver 2, possibly option 3 types of looks, I feel like he has a super high ceiling. He's really come along. He's gotten better year after year, and I would definitely lean with sticking with him in the long term. If you can keep Deebo Samuel as well. I mean, Deebo is, again, I can't get over how much I enjoy watching him as a player, but just from a franchise building standpoint, I think that Aiyuk gives you the sort of longer term success, and they can probably work out a trade because he's not an official free agent after next season. It's just that it's not guaranteed after there, and he's probably going to want a deal that includes guaranteed money for himself. So if they could probably work out some sort of a trade there in my eyes and get a little bit of value for him as well. Now, how much value, we'll see. Doesn't really matter. Again, I'm just talking a little bit hypothetical here, but it is definitely going to be interesting to see how they weigh their options as things progress here. I don't think that, sort of to wrap this all up, T. Higgins and Brandon Aiyuk, I expect them to both be on their teams headed into next season. I just feel like the windows for them, they're trying to win now. They have expensive quarterback contracts on the horizon, so they're going to try and push their chips in for this season. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but there's still plenty of other talent on the roster. I think that for the 49ers, it becomes an interesting conversation as to who they choose to stick with, but definitely let me know in the comment section how you feel about that situation. But that is all we have time for today. Thank you very much for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Remember to like, follow, subscribe wherever you keep up with us. Check us out on socials for more exclusive short content. And we host this show live every 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Definitely be sure to tune in tomorrow. Take care, and we will see you then.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.